Good evening. We are live. Hello, everybody. How is everybody doing tonight out there? Hope everybody's had a great day so far. Yes, I know, 1 minute late, but oh well. If you guys are new, welcome to the Thursday night stream. I am Potentially Criminal, also known as Sean. If you guys are new, I am a defense attorney out of the Cleveland, Ohio area. We're going to cover a bunch of topics tonight. Kind of a wide range of things, all the way from, yes, Trump being indicted again. I know, shocker, if you guys haven't heard. All the way to a very interesting lawsuit involving the movie The Blind Side. And, well, it's a little awkward what happened there, but we'll get to all of that. First of all, we do try to wait a couple of minutes, let everybody get in here, because I know sometimes people don't show up on time, like myself, or YouTube. Well, the notifications don't always go out. In the meantime, I do want to say hello to everybody out there on Twitch, Facebook, Rumble. Yes, the Rumble Ghetto, we got it going. Job well done saying, I can do custom emotes over here on Rumble. Wow. Did not know that. Yeah, I guess I am a boomer. So I guess we'll start off with muted. You guys are killing me. Get that. Oh, you're giving me panic attacks. Muted. I'll show you muted. Anyway, we try to give everybody about 10 minutes or so to get in here. But in the meantime, we have to cover what's most important. Who was first? And on YouTube, first tonight was Claude. First, yes. What better way to surmise it than that? Congratulations, Claude. And then over on Rumble in the Ghetto, a job well done was said, there's a Rumble. Yes. And then for those of you guys who are interested over on Locals at potentiallycriminal.locals.com, we do have a live chat going. And if you are it's free to join to read what's going on there, see the things that are being posted. But if you want to do things like be involved in the streams, or if there's a live chat going right now, if you guys want to join that, you do have to be a supporter. It's only $3 a month. But for that $3 a month, you get access to what we do on Monday nights. You also get access to the after show. And then if you guys go on there and look around, you'll notice I've been putting up some videos about some topics that might not be advertiser friendly and are maybe only a couple minutes long worth talking about. For example, in Italy, apparently you can grope a teenager for less than 10 seconds and it's not a crime. Surprisingly, in courts over there, which I thought was a little weird, but we talk about that one. And other things YouTube may not like to talk about. And let's see what we have going on over here. Okay, well, some of these I can't show. But who got first over here? Lyndon Lady got first. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You know, being first is most important. If you're not first, you're last. So that is always something to consider. Oh, apparently somebody just missed it by a second over on Locals. But anyways, it is it's $3 a month, and if you sign up for a full year, you get 10 months. You get 2 months free. If you want to give it a tryout, you can use the promo code CRIMINAL down here at the bottom, all one word. It should work. If it doesn't, let me know. But you should get 1 month free access to do whatever you want with it. And then up to you from there. So if you guys are interested, check it out at potentiallycriminal.locals.com. So let's see what else. Who else is Jim? Jim is saying over on Jim is saying, member for 7 months. Thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. Saying the Blindside dude's autobiography contradicts the story. And there are some issues with that. And we're going to talk about it because there have been some concerns about what actually has occurred there. There have been some recent developments, including one in the past 6 hours regarding the Tui family, or however you pronounce their name, that they're doing. So, yes, I know that we'll talk about that, but thank you for mentioning it. Ambi's nuke Italy. Yes. You got to nuke the dirty Italians. Why not? Hey, I could say that. It's my people. So I could do the bubbity boopity pizza pie. I'm allowed to say those things. Joe, Tag of Wisdom, hello. Yes, hi, Joe. How are you doing? Josh Mo says, am I Cyrax's new lawyer? No. He doesn't have enough money to pay me to be his lawyer. Besides, if he paid me, I couldn't cover it. So I wouldn't want to do it. And Toothless is saying it's the 5-second rule. Well, in Italy, it's the 10-second rule. So that's the important thing. Patty F is saying hello from Mesa, Arizona. Well, hello. Hope it's nice out there because we just got a ton of rain. Sheeple Hunter saying muted. Yes. Toto Vader saying YouTube didn't tell me. Yeah, they don't. They're afraid of me. Mama Susan told them, and they've been afraid of me ever since the first night I streamed. Unhung Hero for $2 says, I'm going to come. Don't come. So where are we at here? Where are you? Oh. Yes, Brooks, we are going to cover that briefly. And I guess we'll start talking about that right now. There was a paper in Marion, Kansas. It's a very small town. And the police showed up at the end of the week last week and took everything. They showed up with a warrant and literally took everything from the newspaper. Computers, they took people's cell phones, and they alleged a crime had occurred. Well, there are standards, and actually is federal law that says how you should generally do this, unless you're like thinking they're legitimately involved in criminal conduct. You subpoena the information. Well, there were some reporters out in the Kansas area who got involved, started covering it. And it appears that the district attorney is like, hey, guys, look, oops, our bad, have everything back. Now, I don't want to comment too much further because I want to see what their affidavit said because that has not been released. It hasn't been found yet. And I want to see what that says because the whole thing reeks to high hell. And it looks like the police got caught because they were protecting people they didn't like the newspaper picking on. Now, I'm just saying, like, if you kind of like if you Google the Battle of Athens, that's probably how the people in this town should have handled that. They should have shown up in front of their police station and done some redress of their grievances in a very loud and kinetic way, but they didn't do that. I think that would set a very good tone so people understand nobody's fucking around, but what do I know? Didn't happen in my town, so. James is saying, did that Italian law just come out? It happened about a month ago or so, roughly. So it's not super new, but yeah, the Italian stuff happened about a month ago. Zero Fuck saying pro bono, Cyrax. No. I did a pro bono case already this year. I did it's like Starship Troopers. I'm doing my part. And I did it once. I'm good. Doing it. I'm good on that. American Dreamer says, yes, feds, please just ignore these super chats. So, let's see here. Fair Frozen 55 sent a super chat. Thank you so much, by the way, for $10. Saying, Sean, my dad's bringing a gun tomorrow. He's trying to sell me and been super covert about it. I'm taking bets on if it's going to be a 1911 or what. Ollie said it's in 45 and it cost him about $1,000. Cheers. Should ask him, have you won 2 world wars with it? Hey, if it's a 1911, as long as it's a good one, it's not too bad. Just you have to take a look at it. Hopefully it's not like a Springfield XD or something. Well, thank you for the super chat. Brandon says, you said you would defend anyone. Yes, but I've already made fun of him, so it looks really bad as an attorney if I try to represent the guy. Especially if things don't go well. He can argue it's like a conflict of interest or ineffective assistance of counsel. Especially at this point. I've already commented way too much. And if I hadn't, sure, I would consider it. But I said defend anyone, yes, but I also have to live. And if I just started doing everything for free, I'm sure the future Mrs. Martin would kill me. And then, or I'd be recording this out of the back of my car somewhere. So I don't want to do that. Dell says I must defend Chris Chan. Well, he's out. He's out and about. Sounds like he kind of won. So I don't know what he needs me for at this point. Brimstone saying, would I defend Hitler? I mean, well, it depends on what. I mean, defend Hitler. Well, Hitler's been charged with a lot of things. So, but yes, if you said, hey, you're going back in time to work the Nuremberg trials, yeah, sure. Except it's very much that'd be a very time-consuming job. Yes, Porcelain Thunder saying doing it for the lols. Yes. Yes, the common lawyer's right. Let justice reign, or let justice be done, or may the heavens fall. Quote the great Roy Garrison out of JFK. Two Scoop says Sean doesn't want to be the Lincoln lawyer of Cleveland. Lincoln lawyer still got paid. He made money. I'd have to defend every count. Oof, that's a lot of counts. It's a lot of counts. Grizzly Blues for $5. Thank you. Saying clip that. Oh, I'm sure there's a lot of clips. If you join us on Discord, don't worry, they get posted. Del says big business on lolcow defense. It depends which lolcows you're involved with. Joshua Clark says that is the motto on the seal of the Tennessee Supreme Court. Yeah, it's in a lot of places. It's a very common. It's a very common thing. Just I can't read that one. Yes, that'd be a great opening. It's a great opening to my closing argument. Blaze over on Rumble saying, what are my thoughts on 2011s? I mean, they look pretty cool. Like, I don't know, for the money that they are, you can get other things, and there's better stuff out there. So, I mean, that's all I would say. Sweetheart says, I need my own font. Yes. Although, speaking of fonts, we're going to talk about that in a minute when we get to the Trump case, and we're actually ready to start because it's 13 minutes. I lost track. I'm sure. Okay, yes. Ran a little. What? Oh, okay. That's good. Kimbo says, if I start a Ponzi scheme, will you be the first investor and paid sponsor? What are you going to sell? I mean, we've already done established titles. I mean, let's get on some good stuff. I mean, make some real YouTube money. Oh, damn it. I actually am muted. You guys are... See, this is what happens when you trick me and I don't listen to anybody. So that's when I talk to the future Mrs. Martin. I don't listen to her half the time. You guys want to join that list? Because that list, she's on that list, and You know, growing up as a kid, put my parents on that list. Put a lot of people on that list. So there you go. So Sarah Boone, that's the first story. Just kidding. Nothing new. She's still going to trial in October. Nothing new yet. I checked right before we started. Still nothing new. So Ashley says, I just joined your Discord and you're actually muted this time. Oh my gosh. Goalie saying, I was talking about the upcoming furry convention. I was excited to go to. I'm hosting it. Come on now. So, Chronolist is saying, anything new on the Cyrax court feed? I mean, he's hired a new attorney. His attorney is a guy in the area, practices down that way, and does come up here sometimes. His attorney's a good guy. I know who he is. He does good work. Probably wasn't cheap. So yeah, he'll do all right by Cyrax. I don't know if Cyrax is going to go to trial. And like I said, as we get more updates, we'll cover those, but it's nothing really to do. So let's get to the case everybody has been talking about that's been going on for a little while now. Former President Trump was indicted again. This time it was in the state of Georgia, particularly Fulton County, Georgia. Also known as Hotlanta for the kids out there. He was indicted on a massive indictment with multiple people in it. Actually, it was, you got the wrong thing up here now. It was this bad boy right here, this big chicken, this bad chicken right here. And it is massive. That's what she said. So what do we know? The biggest thing here is the Georgia RICO Act, the Racketeering, Influence, and Corrupt Organizations Act. That's what RICO means. So when you see people pleaded in civil cases, they're alleging a massive thing. So once again, in civil cases, RICO is never the answer. In criminal cases, is RICO the answer? Sometimes. Now, what is RICO? RICO was developed by the federal government because they couldn't figure out a way to get the mafia. So bad men were out there and the government couldn't catch them. So what do they do? They make up laws specifically tailored to go after those bad men. You might be thinking, wow, that's kind of a horrible way to do things. And it is, but hey, the government does what the government does. And these are baked in the cake now at this point. Many states have their own versions of this. In Ohio, it's called engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity. We don't call it RICO because we're not tools. I mean, the only RICO anybody cares about is RICO Suave. Anyway, so that is what RICO means. That's what it is. In Georgia, though, the RICO statute is really vague. It's very broad. Basically, if a couple people get together and commit a crime, it's technically RICO in Georgia. RICO cases, even at the federal level, are very difficult to try. They are very time-consuming. And in Atlanta, they've got a big one going right now. If you guys have ever been watching Nicholas Storrow, I think I was on there with him once or twice. And then we talked about the case that's going on, the Young Thug trial. Him and his buddies are getting charged of RICO. That's the one where the attorneys have been held in contempt. The jurors have been jailed. Somebody was caught like selling drugs in court. Like the defendants were doing drug deals. It took them months and they're just now done with jury selection. And I still don't even think it's done yet. But that shows you how much of a disaster these trials are. So RICO cases are not quick. They're not easy. And yes, it's Trump, it's Rudy, and then other people you may not know. John Eastman's one of his attorneys that did a lot of work. John Eastman, the California bar, threatened to go after him, and they tried to take his ticket a little while ago in hearings. I don't think that's been decided yet, but you have Mark Meadows, his chief of staff at the time. Kenneth Chisbro, he's an attorney. Jeffrey Clark, he was an attorney in the Department of Justice, the one who Trump was trying to make attorney general so he could do whatever he wanted. Jenna Ellis, another attorney. And you have all kinds of people on here. Some names you've heard of, some names you have never heard of. Okay? And then you get to Sidney Powell, Unleashing the Kraken. Then you have a couple of people in here like Scott Hall. You're like, wait, that's Scott Hall? Like, I tell you what, Chico. Or part of the NWO, Scott Hall, if you're a wrestling fan. No, not him. Yeah, who's Sean Still? I mean, guys, this is a 98-page document. And they have a bunch of charges on here. Violation of oath by a public officer, false statements and writings, criminal attempt to influence witnesses. Okay. They have tons and tons of things on here, multiple counts. We get to the end, including then things like perjury. And the perjury goes to people who testified in front of the grand jury earlier this year. If you guys remember, we covered it with that girl who had that little witch with the smug look. She's like, well, I just wanted to have him come in and say under oath, Mr. Trump. That little girl, that little little rat. That grand jury, they're charging people with committing perjury in front of it. So what I can tell you is this thing is a dumpster fire. There are a lot of problems with it, and we're going to start going through those real quick. Interestingly enough, and people think this is funny here, but this is apparently the rule in Georgia law. The grand jurors are not secret. Yes, you are reading that right. The grand jurors are not secret. So all these folks right here, well, all these people were involved in the process. Now, a grand jury does not require a unanimous verdict to indict. So who knows who voted how? But all these people, well, guess what? You can find out who they are because their names are right here. So it's very, very weird. For example, that is not information that gets released. The grand jury foreperson signs the indictment, but it just says foreperson of the grand jury, and then there's a signature. So if you're able to identify the signature, you could get that. And then there is a list of the grand jurors who get selected, and it's filed, but that is a protected file you do not have access to, and you would need court order and court permission to get. So it's a very weird thing, but hey, remember, every state does things differently. That is a big thing you need to think about. Every state does things differently, and we're going to, look in this a little bit here. So they talk about the cases here, and then they talk about, where you could find some of these, charges. Now there's a million acts in this, and the way you do a RICO case is there are criminal actions, and then there are things you do in furtherance of that organization and that operation, which may not be criminal, but you're going to lay out that it happened. So, for example, you can have a meeting between a couple of people, but it's in furtherance of that criminal organization. So not every act has to be a crime. And I know people were saying, they said this is a problem. Now, I will get to that part. Just remember, not everything that they list has to be a crime. They are laying out how this is set up. It's just like a conspiracy. Not everything in the conspiracy itself is a crime. In fact, some may be harmless acts, but when you put it all together, well, boom. For example, if I want to, if I drive to Nick Rekieta's house and I have a gun, a shovel, a bag of lime with me, and some duct tape, well, I'm allowed to own a gun. I'm allowed to have a shovel. I'm allowed to have a bag of lime. I'm allowed to have duct tape. But if they also look on my phone and they see me on Twitter saying, hey, Nick, I'm coming to take care of this once and for all, and they won't be able to find your nose poking out of the dirt, well, that gives them a cause that this is a lot more than just harmless acts. These are things assembling together to commit a criminal act. I mean, just think about it. You have to bury him really deep so his nose don't poke up. That's how they'd find him. So let's go to it, because there are a lot of things here that are very problematic. And I think one of them especially is this type of offense here they talk about. The solicitation of violation of oath by a public officer. And the reason why that's an issue is, we're going to get to it. Oh my gosh, this thing just goes on and on and on forever. Okay. So count 2. These guys all went down there, and these are the people. Notice Trump is not involved in this one right here. He's not involved in all the counts. Many people are involved other than Trump. So what did they do specifically that they're alleging is criminal? Well, that they unlawfully solicited, requested, and importuned, meaning they really asked them to do something, members of the Georgia Senate, okay, and they asked them to engage in conduct constituting the felony offense of violation of oath by a public officer. So they're claiming that whatever it is they asked them to do, which in this case is to conduct a special session. There's a problem with this. The violation of their oath. Well, what's the oath of a Georgia, member of the Senate? Well, I swear to uphold the Constitution of Georgia and represent the citizens of Georgia to the best of my abilities. That's pretty much their oath. Okay, so is holding a special session a violation of your oath? No. In fact, going to your political figures and asking them to do something. But it turns out it's illegal. Would that mean everyone who does that is committing this crime? So, for example, I want to go to them and say, I want to make it legal so I can kill anyone who is still watching reruns of The Office. And if I were to go do that and go to these members of the Georgia Senate, I absolutely hate the show. Would that be a violation of their oath? Well, no, they'd say, sorry, we can't do that. It's illegal. Oh, okay. I mean, think about it. That I asked them to do something that's against their oath. People do that all the time. Can we have a law against burning the flag? Can we have a law saying no abortions at all? Can we have a law saying, can we banning books? Doing all kinds of things. And they tell people, sorry, we can't do that. There are problems with this. There are problems with a lot of these comments. For example, a lot of these acts, and we'll get to like one of them here. They talk about it. They talk about where former President Trump's using his Twitter. So like on the 3rd day of December, he uses Twitter to say, hey, look what's going on one American news network. In furtherance of this conspiracy. I will say, as much as I think the Washington, D.C. indictments are dog shit, Jack Smith didn't go out there and make every single fucking thing he did part of the conspiracy. Tried to limit it. Now, there's problems there on their own. But this is just garbage. This is somebody who doesn't understand what they're doing. And this is the thing. The DA's office down there is garbage. Like I said, the Young Thug case is 6 months in and they just got a jury done. In fact, they are so big on using RICO. There were 3 court reporters, 3 of them. And it's those ladies who sit, the court reporters sitting there just typing away on their little thingies, little keyboards. They got charged with RICO because they all agreed to use a slightly bigger font, which made the transcripts take more pages, and they get to charge more per page. So if it's a couple extra pages, they get to charge more for that. And if you do it over time and you do it a gajillion times, guess what? That's a lot of money. So they went after court reporters using RICO. This whole thing is just absolutely garbage. And I will say tomorrow, guys, if you're interested on future conflicts, should be about 9 a.m. tomorrow. I'll be joining Scott and Joe and Stan and Watcher and whoever else is there. We'll probably go over this a little bit more in depth because I do have it broken down. This whole thing is just this whole indictment is garbage. And there's a bigger issue going on for quite a few people involved in this who do have federal jobs. And that is the supremacy clause of the U.S. Constitution. But I think we need to catch up here real quick on gas masks and hand grenades. Says, I'm a Trump cuck, dude. Just own it. No, not particularly. I mean, if we're talking about cucks, Trump is probably one of the biggest cucks out there. Going to take on the deep state, and the deep state cucked him so hard. I mean, the deep state put I'm going to drain the swamp. The swamp put him on a rotisserie, and he just kept on hiring people who were doing the bidding of the deep state, of the establishment. I don't want to use establishment people. All he did was hire establishment people, and look, they didn't do anything he wanted. So, yeah, I mean, do I think this is right that this is coming this way to him? No. But remember, if they'll do this to him, they will do this to you. So, that is, I guess, just, you know, I guess I'll own that, but I'm not going to own the fact that it's a Trump cuck, whatever. The prosecutor posted the indictment earlier. We're going to get to that in a second. We'll get to that because there's a whole issue there too. Common Lawyer says, Popat told me it's never RICO. In a civil case, it's never RICO, but RICO does happen in criminal trials. And then, where's I saw it earlier? Yes, Joe is right. We care about Johnny RICO. Yes. You guys are what? Red Starship Troopers. Yes, good old Lieutenant Wani RICO, the leader of RICO's Roughnecks. Yes, Joshua, speaking of Johnny RICO, yes, everyone fights, no one quits. Toothless saying like Nick's RICO case, exactly. Yes, you don't use RICO in a civil thing. That's absolute garbage. Like I said, I will not comment on the rest of the case, but I can say alleging RICO is like one of the dumbest fucking things you can do in a civil matter. I mean, because you have to prove the crimes. You have to prove a conspiracy. I mean, that's the crap sovereign citizens and lunatics do. So I don't know why you'd file it. Brandon says they're not done yet. Yeah, well, we'll see. Brandon says, they're not. What's wrong with selling drugs in court? There's nothing wrong with it, but you have to, you can't get caught doing it. Like, if you're going to do it right. That's the thing. So. Yes, actually, Rich, you were 100% correct. I forgot about this part. I don't know why, everybody let this happen, especially in the district attorney's office. But I have a massive problem with this. Vladimir Chikharov. We're screaming about the collusion, bump, bump, bump. I mean, look at that. Look at that. I mean, look at that. Just screaming in there like a caliber missile hitting some Redditors who don't put down their phone. Yes, that is a problem. That is a problem right there. And we need to. Nobody's spoken up about it yet. This CBR says look up their social media. Yeah, I mean, but it's too late. There's not a whole lot you can do with a grand jury. Remember, you can indict a ham sandwich. So remember, they're only going to present the evidence they want to present anyway. So yeah. Joe is saying, correct me if I'm wrong, but doesn't RICO generally require a financial transaction somewhere? In mafia cases, they try to show the money going around, and that shows how you structure the criminal organization, the way money flows. It's how you tie people to it. But it doesn't have to be. It's just most criminal organizations revolve around money. So it generally happens that way. But very good question, Joe. Yeah, you guys are like... Kelly's saying, whose channel? I mentioned tomorrow morning, yes, at 9. It'll be on Future Conflicts. And those are... Actually, I'll bring it up so you guys can see it here. you guys are interested, it'll be the Future Conflicts channel over here. You guys can find them here. They do shows Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They also have a couple of different side shows that are, I can say side shows, but they do different things, talking about with writers, including hosted by Blaine. They cover different issues, but as things are on here, covering different topics that have occurred. And if you guys are interested, stop by tomorrow morning. It'll be very good. Yes, and the strike has been removed, so we're back there. Yes. Porcelain Thunder says, really? I don't know if this is real. Okay, so state senators called for it. All right, well. Yeah, I'm sure. And I don't think that's going to go anywhere. I don't think it's going to go anywhere. So, yeah, not worried about it. So, yeah, don't worry about that. There's a member of the Georgia Senate who's trying to impeach her. That's going to go nowhere. Now, there was another issue with the initial release of this indictment that happened, and this is where we'll end with the Fulton County hijinks. Remember, Fulton County in the Atlanta area is not exactly a paragon of government efficiency. It's kind of corrupt and a little sketch. So at some point, a document had been leaked and put up on the clerk of court's website that the press grabbed, and they thought it was the document, the actual indictment. And they say, wait, it's not real. Okay, well, who put it up? And it was a fictitious document sheet. Okay. So what does that mean? Well, in the afternoon, it listed a bunch of charges before he was officially indicted. So who knew about it? How did that get there? Well, they called it a fictitious docket sheet. Well, who's playing around with it? And according to the clerk, they were trying to do a test run to test the system. I mean, they could have put up anything at all. And they published a sample working document which led to the docketing of what appeared to be an indictment. Okay, I'm sure, yes, it just reeks of government incompetence, which I know is shocking. I'm a little disappointed, though, because they point out that the media has access to documents before they're published. That shouldn't exist. We should all have access at the same time. The media shouldn't be getting extra scoops. It's the people. It's government information the public is entitled to. There should be no restriction on it. There should be no walls in place that give special access to people. Now, people are trying to file things, whatever. But to allow the press a special access, no, I don't like that. And then they did say, while it appeared to have something official occurred, they said, well, actually, it didn't say true or that it was a no bill, and there was no stamp on it. So, look, it really wasn't that big deal, huh? They understand the matter, the confusion this caused, and the sensitivity of all court filings. I'm sure you do. So it was just a complete mess, and I think that was, yes, I'm sure that was an accident. Nothing political there at all. Tadano saying maybe they're running their back end on a 486. Maybe. Yes. J-Rock is saying for $2, would you give our dear feeder legal advice? Yeah, sure. If Noel ever reached out to me, I'd be happy to talk to him. It's a nice guy, he's doing God's work. So yeah, if you ever got a hold of me, I'd be happy to talk to him. Josh did want to say thank you for the $2. Josh Bicall for $1.99, thank you, is saying, why no comment on next case? In Monty's complaint, I'm listed right at the beginning as a witness to some of the things Nick has said. Is alleged to have said, okay, well, if I'm a witness to a case, I don't think it's proper for me to go run around talking about it, considering I'm listed specifically as a fact witness, not, just, oh, I could have heard some of these. Like, they're saying I heard some of these statements. I would presume they're going to want to depose me, or I could be called as a witness. And I think it's only proper, especially given that I'm an attorney. I wouldn't want the witnesses I have, if people are listed in a document, run their fucking mouths about things, about the actual case itself. So I think it's probably only proper and the right thing to do. Now, am I doing because I'm worried about getting in trouble? No. Once again, if I was in Mark Randazzo's shoes or David Schneider's shoes, I wouldn't, I'd want the people out there just to keep their mouths shut, because maybe I want that witness, for my side or another. So it all depends. Eric is saying, oh, money's got me shook. No, I mean, because listen, whatever questions I may ask or whatever I may provide helps one party or another. Well, I'm sure if Monty thinks I'm going to be helpful to him, he doesn't want me coming on here and saying things that could show bias. And I'm sure Nick doesn't want me on here saying things that could show bias if he wants me. So I think both of them would like everybody involved to shut up. So somebody's asking about Robert L. Peters. Yes. No. That is a special one that I think is going to be very interesting, because yes, if you guys aren't aware, Robert L. Peters, we'll leave that for now. Now we'll get back to the indictment, because there is a interesting part of this, especially from what's going on with Mark Meadows. If you guys remember Mark Meadows, he was from South Carolina. He was a representative. He became, when Trump was president, his chief of staff at the very end. Okay, so in the Northern District of Virginia, he filed an action. And it's state of Georgia versus Mark Meadows. Okay, he's filing for a notice of removal. And those of you who are familiar with the lore of Ruby Ridge, Lon Horiochi, the FBI hostage rescue team sniper who shot and murdered Vicki Weaver without cause, was indicted by that grand jury and by that county for manslaughter. The federal government immediately removed his case to federal court and dismissed it. And that's where it ended. So what do we see here? So he has filed to have this removed to federal district court. And he's using two separate statutes, 28 U.S.C. 1442 and 1455. So what do we know about those statutes? Well, it's easy enough. How do we know? Well, we look them up. And what does 1442 say? So it is for federal officers or agencies sued or prosecuted. A civil action or criminal prosecution has commenced in a state court that is directed against any of the following may be removed to the district court of the United States for that district and division, embracing the place where it is impending. So Atlanta is in the Northern District of Georgia. So that's where you bring it. The United States or any agency thereof, or any officer or person acting under that officer. Okay. Relating to any act under the color of such officer or on account of any right, title, or authority claimed under any act of Congress. Okay. So how do we get to this? Well, there's the other part of this here, which is procedures for removal of federal criminal prosecutions. Okay. And this talks about how you do it. You file your notice of removal, and that's listed here. So what does all this mean? Well, this is how Mark Meadows is laying out his arguments. And his arguments are pretty straightforward. Now, is this going to work? Don't know. I think it should, but that doesn't mean it does. There's a lot of things that should happen in the law that don't happen. So they point out that in these circumstances, federal law provides for prompt removal of criminal prosecution for any in their official capacity or relating to any act under the color of his office. Okay. Well, he was the chief of staff of the president. So they also point out nothing in the indictment itself he's alleged to have done is criminal per se. And we already talked about this. Sometimes your overt acts are not criminal. In this case, all Mark Meadows did, and they lay out what he did here. One would expect the chief of staff to the president to do sorts of things like contacting state officials, visiting a state government building, and setting up phone calls. And they point out here that murder charges have been successfully removed to federal court. And once again, Lon Horiuchi and what he did to Vicky Weaver is a great example of that as well. There's a long history of this happening going back throughout history, and courts do uphold this stuff. They point out the relevant question is whether the defendant was a federal official at the time of the conduct charged, not at the time of prosecution, which makes sense because it's about what you did when your status at that time. They talk about the jurisdiction, and this occurred while he was White House chief of staff. Yep. And if you guys weren't aware, he served as Trump's chief of staff from March 31st, 2020 until January 20th, 2021. And before that, he was a member of North Carolina's, I said South, as North Carolina. He was a member of their 11th congressional district from January 2013 till March of 2020. So he's there for quite a while. And they point out here, these are the counts and the allegations of what he did. So their arguments are that he met with the majority leader of the Michigan State Senate and other people in the Oval Office while Trump made false statements. Okay. Well, so they're claiming that, this argument, yes, he set up a meeting, but they're arguing part of this meeting was to allow Trump to make the claims they believe are false. Once again, that's still not criminal activity, and it was done while he was chief of staff. They talk about him sending out text messages to U.S. representatives from Pennsylvania and saying, can you send me the number for the speaker of the PA legislature? The president of the United States wants to talk to him. Okay. That he met with some unindicted co-conspirators, which they have some in this indictment. I don't think it's clear who's been made who yet. But they talk about people in the Pennsylvania legislature. Okay. That he met with people, create a memorandum and a idea for how they can stop the certification from happening on January 6th. Okay. That he traveled down to the Cobb County Civic Center in Georgia to observe signature matching. And he was demanding to be in there, but apparently wasn't open to the public. Once again, is that what crime is there? Having him come down and look at it. Okay. During a phone call. Okay. That he placed a telephone call. Shocker. He sent a text message. All this stuff here. All right. The charged conduct comprises acts taken whether or not, is an individual or official capacity under the color role of chief of staff. Easy peasy enough. He has defenses for the charges in this indictment that arise under federal law, including federal immunity under the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution. He does. All he has to show is that he has a plausible federal defense to the charges against him. Well, he has a plausible defense. He was the chief of staff. He might be entitled to immunity. He has been officially indicted, so he's allowed to file this at this point in time. Even though he hasn't been served, there's been public notice that he has been indicted and he has to turn himself in. Okay. And then they said, even if the court isn't ready to dismiss this, he's demanding that the court grant removal and stop any state court proceedings, which this court could do. The federal court can stop it. So far, the federal court has said, I'm not stopping the process, but we will have a hearing on August 28th where Meadows can come in and lay out his stuff. And ideally, Trump and other people probably will as well. They're arguing that the court should dismiss all charges against him under the Supremacy Clause of the U.S. Constitution, which I don't think that's going to happen. And then they point out that the Supremacy Clause has been interpreted to provide federal officials with immunity from suit involving the state charges to protect them from state prosecutions. And they talk about this has happened throughout history. They have a 2004 case. They cite an 1890s case, an 1879 case. And they talk about the states having no power to retard, impede, burden, or in any manner control the operations of the constitutional laws enacted by Congress to carry and execution of the powers vested in the general government. And they go all the way back to McCulloch v. Maryland, which that is a granddaddy of Supreme Court case law if you haven't read it. It's interesting. And it does cover straight up criminal action as well. So in 1899, a federal official who was at a disabled veterans home was serving margarine to disabled veterans. And he didn't put a sign out advising, I'm serving margarine, not butter. Apparently in Ohio, that was a law at the time. So Ohio charged him. And he took that case to federal court. And the Supreme Court said, yep, that's a federal matter now. Oh, I can't believe it's not butter. Federal immunity has been acknowledged all over the place, the 2nd, 5th, 6th, 9th, 10th, and 11th circuits, but also through the Supreme Court. The federal officials entitled immunity if he's authorized to do what he did by law of the United States, if it was his duty to do so as an officer of the United States, and if in doing that act he did no more than what was necessary and proper for him to do. I think this last little bit is where maybe there's going to be some argument, but we'll see. They point out that the federal authority is a question of the general role and authority, not the specific authorization for the conduct. So that is where they point out some things here. And then they point out second, even if they're not ready to do it, they need to remove this and they need to stay the state court proceedings. Court has not stayed the state court proceedings yet. And this court's going to take a little while, even after they hear the arguments on the 28th. So, the process is going to chug along. And this is both for Meadows' sake and for the sake of other federal officials who might be chilled by the prospect, which really is Trump, because, and Jeffrey Clark, because he would have been a DOJ member. I don't think the other people would be enjoyed that level of protection. So like Sidney Powell, I think a lot of people are going to be left to fend for themselves here. And this was filed by his attorney. So we'll see what that brings. It'll be interesting what this brings to us. And hopefully in a week or two, we'll have some more to talk about with that. So, hold on here, guys. J-Rock is saying don't consume seed oils. Yes. Chaucerian Fraud says margarine is basically plastic. And Trenton says, yes, it should be a law now about butter. And I'm glad we're focusing on whether or not you could serve butter, because that's the discussion we're having right now. That's the real important matter, not what this means for our country because the former president was indicted. No. It's about butter. Thermo says, I unironically support the margarine law. J-Rex has returned to tallow. J-Rex says, Sean, get my last super chat. Okay, just everybody needs to chill. Just chill it down. I'll get to it. J-Rock for $5 is saying $5. Thank you. Saying, what's your takes on Hurricane Electric and not allowing the farms there? Are you willing to participate in the total retard war? Of course, I'm down to roll. I think what they're doing to the farms is like horrible in that regard. And I hope that, the farm is able to get some traction against them and, extract some compliance out of it. I think that they are violating the law and what they're doing there. Josh is saying for $1.99. That makes sense. I'm happy it did. Thank you for the super chat as well. Kelly R for $4.99. Thank you, Kelly. Is saying, can I ask a question about how the grand jury works, or is it off topic? You just asked it. No, it's not off topic. So the grand jury is generally every state's going to be a little different, but here's how the grand jury works. So the grand jury meets in secret, and now meeting in secret doesn't mean like you have to knock on a door and sneak in or have a password, but it's not public. It's not available to anybody. I can speak a little more in depth about what happens in my state here in Ohio. So, for example, people get summoned for jury duty. And this happens everywhere, even federally. You get summoned for jury duty to sit on a petit jury, or you sit for the grand jury. And you get a notice saying it's for one or the other. The way grand juries work, they typically, it all depends on how things are set up. Sometimes the grand juries, you come in for multiple days, but it's once a month. You come in this day every week. Okay. Or maybe it's for every day, every Monday of this month, you have to come in. Something like that. They can't take you for days on end because nobody would show up, and that'd be horrible. Anyway, when you show up for the grand jury duty, they do a little bit of a voir dire. Still, just like regular jury selection, except it's just the prosecutor. And they're going to ask, like, do you know any of these names? Do you know any of these people? They're going to ask, do you have any problems? Can you be here for multiple days? Now, for example, where I am at in Ohio, generally, you only have one day you show up for grand jury duty. In the bigger counties, that sometimes is a little different because there's a grand jury every day. But in some very rural areas, the grand jury meets once a month. And you meet for a couple sittings at a time, generally about 6. It's called a session. So they do 2 sessions a year. And you meet, and that's it. You meet for a couple times and you're done. Once you've been selected, the way the grand jury works is you come in and you sit down in a room. And there's no rules on how the room's set up. Inside that room is the prosecutors, you, the grand jurors, and then a court reporter. And that court reporter takes down a transcript of what is stated during the grand jury. So as evidence is being presented, who are the witnesses? What do they say? Now, we don't normally get to hear about grand jury information because it's highly protected, because we try to keep that an anonymous process. There are times, like in Trump's case, the federal government is having some of that grand jury testimony already provided. They're voluntarily trying to offer that up to the defense because that was already going to be sought. And they're already doing that. So the evidence gets presented. Sometimes, depends on how it's set up, the grand jurors can ask questions of these witnesses. And then once all the presentation on a case has been done, they will say, and from my experience, this is how it go. We are looking to indict Joe Neerman for the crime of robbery. And robbery in the state of Ohio is characterized by these elements. And we are asking you to determine whether on or about, July 4th of 2023, did Joe Neerman commit robbery by robbing Mickey Mouse? And then we say, you guys are going to vote. Come tell us when you're done. Everybody gets up and leaves, except for the grand jurors. Even the court reporter, everybody's out of the room. The grand jury does their deliberation in private. No one gets to know about it. Then they come and they do their vote, and they come knock on the door and say, hey, we're done. And we find out whether or not it was a no bill, meaning, sorry, we didn't indict this person, or it's a true bill, meaning we did. Grand jury indictments do not have to be unanimous. For example, in Ohio, you have 9 people total. You only need 7 of 9. In Georgia, they had 23. I don't believe you need all 23. That would be absolutely ridiculous. But every state is different. So that's the grand jury process. It's entirely one-sided. There is no right to be there as a defendant. And the idea that a defendant may testify in front of a grand jury is you're looking for a unicorn that's crapping moon rocks. That's how rare it is if it ever happens. So it's entirely a one-sided affair. The prosecutor's there presenting the evidence they want. So pretty much everybody gets indicted. And I hope that answers your question. Thank you for asking for it. That's a very good question. Zero Bucks saying it's 23 in New York. Wow. Yeah, some states. Thermo saying we know Joe Nerman wouldn't commit robbery, it'd be wire fraud. Well, maybe. Raven saying, so the grand jury in Trump's case is blabbing. I don't believe they are. I don't believe I don't believe anybody's been talking from the grand jury. But people are trying to find them. And what I will tell you is, I don't care if you recognize any of those names, you live in that area, do not go find these people. That is a great way to get charged with a tampering case. That doesn't look good enough. You happen to be friends with one of them already, fine. But don't go out there. Don't find them. Don't say, oh, I'm going to do this or that to them. Do not do any of that. Because then you will find out what the big old gnarled cock of the state looks like coming after you for something. Like, it's going to come at you like that. Okay, so don't fuck with the jurors. Ginger saying no one's safe here tonight. Yeah. Yes, everybody is. Everybody's getting charged or accused. Kelly, actually, you're asking another question. Thank you for $9.99. I appreciate it. Saying, when the district attorney shows his evidence to the grand jury, does he use that evidence at the trial, or can he come to court with all new evidence they didn't show to the grand jury? Well, they don't show everything to the grand jury. I would use, for example, a murder. You're not going to sit there. You don't present everything to the grand jury that you're going to show at trial. You're not going to, the rules are a little bit fast and loose. For example, in a murder, you'll have the detective come in. You'll be like, you might have the responding officer show up. Yeah, I responded to this, this little drug house that was, this little shack next to the house where I know druggies were. We were told there was a shooting when I showed up. Some guy was laying there shot in the leg, and another lady got shot in the chest, and she was like bleeding and dying. Okay. And who was it? Well, I found out their names were Bob and Sally. Okay. And then after a while, they might have the detective come in after that, call their next witness. Hey, detective, what happened? There's leading questions. There's all kinds of stuff. Remember, there's no other party there. There's no defense attorney. Hey, detective, what happened? Yeah, I went there. We started figuring out Bob and Sally were dead. Well, Sally died, but she had mentioned, who did it. Bob also mentioned he recognized the guys who did it. We started looking around. We found a guy going down the street. We caught him. He said his name was Steve. Okay, well, what did Steve say? Steve said X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. They don't go, it's very short like that. They don't have to show a confession. They aren't going to come in and wave like a gun or a bloody knife or anything like that. It's a very short and sweet presentation. They try to limit it because it takes up a lot of time when you're doing, especially where the office I worked in, one of the offices I worked in was a very small office. When grand jury day happened, it was the boss, the elected prosecutor, and his, right-hand man, they were doing it. Like, that was all day long. So, like, you don't have time to do other stuff. So it's got to be short and sweet. You got to boom, 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 knock them out. So it's a very short process. It's not at all like trial. Now, for things like the cases that Jack Smith has brought, and for Fannie Willis doing these things, yes, these were probably a little more in depth and involved with a lot of testimony over a long stretch of time. But these are the very, 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 very rare exceptions and not the norm. The norm, it's just like most trials. Most trials are like 2 or 3 days in America. Boom, they're done. Most indictments probably take 15, 20 minutes to get somebody indicted. That's how long it takes. So that is where we are. Mikey says, yes, some idiot threatened the judge with an email. Yes. Don't do that shit. Don't do that. Zero Fucks saying, Steve said trust the government. He has blue hair too. Yes. You guys referring to Destiny. That's a girl's name. So let me see here. J Rock for $2 saying, I appreciate your words for the farms. Joe's usury. Okay. Brimstone is saying money doesn't think you're biased. I don't know what he thinks, but I think it's only proper I don't talk about the case. I mean, I haven't talked to him, so that's part of the issue there. I don't want to talk. So that is there. Carrie saying you can refuse to testify in a grand jury. Yes, you can plead the Fifth. You have the right to assert your Fifth Amendment right and decline to testify. Now, if you're subpoenaed for the grand jury, you can't just, like here's your subpoena and you're just like, what? What's this? Oh, fuck it, I'm not going. Don't do that. Don't do that. What you do is you get a hold of an attorney, and your attorney might file a motion to quash the subpoena, and that may be granted. The court might say, sorry, you got to show up and testify, Carrie. Now, what you do then is if you don't, you can say, I plead the Fifth Amendment. I plead my right. I invoke my right to remain silent. It doesn't matter. Even innocent people have the right to invoke the Fifth Amendment. And there's case law that goes through that. It's called Ohio v. Reiner. It actually happened about 20 years ago. It's a very interesting case where the Supreme Court said, yes, you can be, invoking it even if you're innocent, because there's always a fear. You don't know for sure what the prosecutor's thinking or going to do. So you always have the right to remain silent. So yes, you can invoke silence in front of the grand jury, but you have to go still. You can't just ignore it. I don't recommend that ever. No. Zero Fox saying, would I be held in contempt and have to write a 30-page paper? No. And this is just the idea I can go into court and just act like anybody else and screw around and have fun with it. Well, no, I can't. I'm an officer of the court. And what I would, because even if let's say, for example, I'm on a video deposition, it would probably be done through like Zoom or even StreamYard here. I'm still an officer of the court. I'm bound by the professional rules of conduct here in Ohio. Even though this is a case in Minnesota, if I start acting up and doing stupid things or breaching the rules, I still have duties and obligations. And also, I'm an attorney. I know better. I'm held to a higher standard. So no, I can't just be a smartass. And getting me held in contempt, that wouldn't be a good idea because I could get sanctioned for that. Not only by that court in Minnesota, which would have jurisdiction over me to an extent, but the Supreme Court of Ohio is going to say, dude, what are you doing? Come on, don't be an idiot. And I'm going to be like, bro, so you can't do that. Let's see here. Oh, you guys are offering. Okay, so apparently in a locals chat, we're talking about the fact that horses get farted on more than any other animal. Yes, they do. They do for sure. That's a very interesting one. It's a very interesting comment. Something to think about. Do you think the horses like that? Do you think they like the warmth that just like poof of the warmth that goes on their back? Or do you think they know what it is? Maybe that's why they throw us off. Maybe that's why Christopher Reeves got tossed from the horse. He's like, man, don't you do that again. It's like you having those arugula farts, and he just threw them. So maybe that's what happened. So June is saying, don't talk to the cops or the court. Well, Selren says I'm wrong. That this prosecutor uses a stopwatch, see how long it took. Yeah. At times when I was involved with dealing with the grand jury and my experiences, there have been times where we close the door and we're just standing there and they're like, yeah, we're already done. But also there are times where it's a very straightforward what happened. So for example, the cop comes in and says, yeah, I responded. There was a car sitting there. We chased this car. I tried to stop it because it ran a red light. We chased it through town. It hit a tree and a guy came running out of it and I chased him and caught him. And it was the guy that came out of the car. And we asked the owner of the car, was this guy allowed to drive it? And said, no, it was stolen. Okay, well, that's boom, boom, boom. Pretty very simple, stolen car. Or, we found him and he had some crack on him. Okay, well, sometimes it is super quick, but yes, it has been very gamed and made super quick. And so scam like this is my locus is full of Vosh fans. If that really were the case, I would nuke it. I mean, I would it would be like Command and Conquer when the ion cannon gets fired up, just like an orbital strike, just boom. That's how that would go. So be careful when you make those allegations. I take them seriously. All right, guys, moving on to another issue that is out there. Alec Baldwin, the great actor, Alec Baldwin. Well, he's not out of the woods yet. And why do I say that? Well, he's not out of the woods yet because Hannah Reid, the armorer for the movie Rust, is not out of the woods yet. She's still facing trial. And we talked about this about a week ago. We were going to have a preliminary hearing. They didn't have it. She waived it. So now they're getting ready for trial. And one of the things you do when you're getting ready for trial is you will follow jury instructions. And one of those jury instructions includes things like talking about what you might want as far as a jury instruction, which in this case is the ideas about causation. Now, why do we talk about this issue of causation here? Well, they bring up part of their reasoning here. They previously alleged, and we talked about this, that there may have been some funny business that there wasn't a modification on the gun used by Baldwin. And they believe that this impacts the causation of the manslaughter as to Baldwin, but not to Hannah Reid. And this is why they dismissed the charges against Alec Baldwin without prejudice, meaning they could still bring him. Well, we now received the report from the two experts. And that's where we're going to go straight to it because this is interesting. So when we get to the report, this is an illustrated report, okay, in the matter of State of New Mexico versus Hannah Reid. This is an expert's report prepared on behalf of the prosecution. Well, they're experts. Guess what? The defense gets these. And it was prepared by the special prosecutors by Lucian Hag, criminologist and a forensic firearms examiner. Okay, so what did he talk about? So they talk about that he was given a ton of information, a ton of electronic documents, things to watch and read. Basically, he was given the case file, a copy of it. All right. And they talk about the matters not likely in dispute. And this is how an expert goes through their case to explain what they've got, what needs to be addressed. Okay. Ultimately, the issue was whether or not the Pieta 1873 revolver, Pieta, which also, if this does go anywhere, I'll still be able to get a hold of another Pieta 1873. And I could probably use it as a tax write-off because this is still going to go to trial. If you guys weren't aware what those are, basically it is a copy of an 1873 Colt single-action Army pistol. Now, why is that important, or why do we care? Why does that exist at all? Well, the issue is, and you're thinking, wow, Pieta sounds like it's from Italy. Yes. In Italy, they love their spaghetti westerns. But also that's an issue of those are non-military calibers, and those are a big thing in Europe that you can own firearms not, and easier to own non-military caliber firearms. So they make those in Italy, but you know what? It's cheaper, for the longest time, Colt making a Colt single action Army, holy cow, is expensive. So if you want cheap cowboy guns, these are the people who make them. So they want to find out how it operated, how it discharged, and the source of the live cartridge, whether it could be distinguished from the various types of dummy rounds, and whether the bullet fired were of the same design as the live ammunition. Okay. So they do talk about what happened here, and we actually get to see pictures of the gun that we hadn't had before. And I talked about this a long time ago, and I think I had Runkle the Bailey, Ian Runkle came on, and we went through the FBI's report. So this is everything came through, a lot of items. So the evidence revolver, the actual gun that did this. Okay. So the FBI had it, and by the time it got back to the Santa Fe Sheriff's Office, it was inoperative. Okay. Subsequent disassembly by the experts revealed that part of the hammer had been severely damaged. Things were broken, and we know this because the FBI destructive tested Alec Baldwin's gun in the state it was in to determine whether or not it could go off on its own, and they basically had to break it to make it fire and shear and destroy pieces of metal. So here is the gun as it arrived. Broken parts were in a sealed packet. I mean, this is the cylinder. This is where the rounds go. And this is the gun. They got beat up. And they show the broken pieces. The broken parts from the revolver are here. So this is a bolt piece. This is the tip of the trigger. I mean, they caused a lot of damage to this gun. And they used for reference, the reference trigger for evidence in test firing the evidence revolver. And this is the broken trigger from the evidence revolver. You can see there's a bit of a difference here. You know, this part is there's parts missing. You know, like this little guy right here. Well, that's not there. Then you can see down here, okay, it looks like some things have been broken off. So they ordered new parts. They ordered replacement parts here. So it was returned to service for test firing. And there was returned to service by installing a new bolt. They did it. They purchased it basically from another gun. They cannibalized gun A to fix the evidence gun using the same parts. Notice they said they bought an unfired gun instead of contacting the manufacturer directly, which there could be claims when the manufacturer gave them special parts. No, they went and bought a random copy of the gun because these are mass produced. All the parts are interchangeable, and they stuck them in the gun. And this gun is owned by one of the people at that shop. So they were found upon reassembly is found to function properly and in accordance with the original design of the original Colt 1873. This included the timing, the alignment of the cylinder and its chambers. And if you guys understand it, that cylinder has to rotate properly into line with the barrel. Otherwise, if you were to shoot it, the cartridge goes off and it'll detonate inside the gun because the bullet can't go anywhere and the pressure builds up and it explodes. So a revolver and a machine gun are two guns where timing, and just like a car's timing, are actually critical to its operation. For other firearms, yeah, timing is an issue, but for revolvers, timing is critical, and an out-of-time revolver is dangerous. So they talk about an untoward discharge of a live cartridge during a loss of control of the hammer during manual retraction process before was thwarted by the hammer being captured by the half-cock loading notch. So the idea, if you held the hammer back, you know, and you're playing around with things and you lost the hammer, but you weren't all the way back yet, it would catch itself on one of those stops, the half-cock notch. Okay, so he talks about that. All right. They go through the rest of here's what this gun looks like in its positions. Fully forward, the firing pin right there is poking out, which means if the firing pin is protruding, it hits the back of the cartridge, and well, you know, you get a boom. You have the hammer at quarter cock. You have the hammer at half cock. You know, it doesn't get all the cock, just half the cock. And then you get the whole deal. And once again, this is the firing pin right there on the revolver. And you guys are thinking, wow, that looks very simple. Well, this is an 1873 gun. That's how simple it was back then. What they did then was, and this is the interesting part, they put the revolver in a thing called a trigger scan, which they did 6 scans to carry out the trigger pull necessary to discharge the firearm. Okay. The test yielded an average pull of 1.9 pounds, plus or minus 0.3 pounds. All right. Now, the FBI did something too, and they checked it, and they agreed. They came to a similar conclusion of about 2 to 2.5 pounds. That's not a lot. A 1.9 pound trigger is a very, very light trigger. That means the amount of pressure and weight you would have to pull and press against it to get it to go. Now, a very simple way, they make trigger weight testers, and you sit there and it's a hook you put on the gun, and it's got a little box, and it reads kind of like a fishing weight, and you just pull the box back until the trigger, the trigger pulls and the hammer falls, and you can stop and see where it ends at. Well, 2 pounds is very, very light. Which means it could be down to 1.6 pounds, which is almost 1.5 pounds. And why is that an issue? The average trigger pulls from the 12 impounded revolvers from the set, which were the exact same type of gun. They may have been different models with different colors, different barrel lengths. But they tested those. The average for the 12 was, to the nearest tenth of the town, was 2 pounds plus or minus, 0.5 pound. Okay, the average trigger pull for the 9 Pieta revolvers was 2.1 pounds plus or minus 0.5 pound. Okay. So there's an issue about what was this gun monkeyed with. They then do some, okay, and here's the problem, guys. This stuff here, like this is a chart. Okay, I don't do those. You know why? This involves math. I don't do these. You want to go see some math, go find a math channel. Peak force. I don't do any of that stuff. So we're not looking at any of that. So they do go through here with some other things to show. They talk about the breech face pattern that was on in the primers of the fired cartridges. They do talk a lot about what happens here. If you guys see this here, Sammy, this is the Small Arms Manufacturing Institute. It's a industry standard, so that's why every 9mm bullet you can buy in America is loaded to a certain standard. It's 124 grains. Okay, what's its overall length? What bullet weight? How much powder? What kind of primers? All those things are spec'd out. That way, ammunition is consistent from gun to gun to gun. How you have a gun, what caliber, 223 caliber means it's actually X, Y, and Z. So there's a standardization, and that's for safety. In Europe, it's called the CIP. It's a French thing. I forget what it's called, but that's what this is all about here. They talk about all of that. They talk about the this is the actual cartridge case. The bullet was in here, and this bullet went into Helena Hutchins. This is the primer hitting. This is the firing pin hitting the primer. You guys have never seen that before. That's what that looks like. Now, they do this under a high optical scan. And you can see here, they do a bunch of scans to try to determine things. And then they get, they do this just to show the firing pins. They're trying to show how these guys were operating. Were they operating out of spec? Okay. Well, they talk about using, and this is what they use. They have to document all of this because it is set up. So this guy named Luke set up, he set up hand loads using 7 grams of trail boss, which is a powder, using lead round nose flat point bullets, which Google what those are, but it's basically just lead bullets, how they would have been done back then. Used Remington brass large pistol primers, and they had an approximate muzzle velocity out of a 7.5-inch barrel of 860 feet a second, which doesn't sound fast, but for 1870s, that was pretty damn fast. These are the average firing pin impression depths. And they go from low to high. They do the FBI test fire cartridges. They compare them all. So they go through all of these. These are different manufacturers of ammunition that they list. So they talk about the bullet that was recovered. And the bullet that went through Helena Hutchins went through her into the director, Joel Souza, was buried in his arm. The bullet only weighed 239.7 grains, so it lost a little bit of weight going through people. That's very common. They point out that there are many issues here, whether or not when a bullet goes to somebody, guys, it is hard to determine things because it smashes up really bad. And this is the bullet itself. I mean, it is not like a bullet shot into a tank of water or some capturing device. I mean, that's blood. There's marks on this. This is the instrument that murdered someone and killed them. You could see it's all, I mean, this went through bone and flesh and banged off things. Yeah. And this is the other side. I mean, you guys that we know what that stuff is. So they also removed some cartridges to test what was going on. So here's the powder. That's what powder looks like if you guys have never seen it. Obviously, that they close up because they all fit into here, so it's not that big. But they go through everything they did. And this is a very detailed report. It's actually very impressively done. All the things they test and they thrown apart. So these cartridges were all made with Starline Brass, which is a company that makes brass for things like this. Okay. They were used in particle size comparable to bullseye pistol powder, which is a very common pistol powder. All right. So what does this actually mean? Some of you are wondering what this means. They went ahead, and Seth Kenny is the guy who was in charge of supplying all this. They collected cartridges from him. Okay, so they use semi-wad cutters, which are with a trim cone. This is a type of bullet. Don't worry about it. If you guys want to know it, you can read about it if you want. This is literally, you document everything you do. This is a very well done expert report. Everything has been documented so you can read it and there's no questions about what happened. So they talk about the blanks and they talk about the dummy cartridges and they split out what these are. The blanks leave a ton of residue because it's just burning powder. And such heavy residue was observed in several of the impounded revolvers. But these are examples of the blanks, and the blanks have all these crimps on the end that you fold them over so the powder doesn't leak out. And then when you shoot, all the petals kind of point out, and then you just put them back together. I mean, you really can't do that with blanks because those petals break, but that is what happens. They are together holding the powder, and then they go, looks like a big flower on the end. So this is a blank that has not been fired. And they try to distinguish them. They say it's blank on the bottom, but they also mark them, so you know. These are the rattlers where we heard about talking about the BB you could hear in there. Okay. They lacked any hole in their case walls. Some of these would these are differentiated that, there's a rattler. Okay. Some dummy cartridges have holes in them. That way you know they're dummies. That helps. Okay. They end up getting to their ultimate conclusions here. Okay. So the summary is the fired evidence cartridge is a consequence of a normal hammer falling from the fully cocked position of the hammer, meaning, okay, well, what do we know? The hammer doesn't fall unless it's fully cocked, and if it's fully cocked, the trigger was pulled. So he pulled the trigger. Gun didn't just go off. That's not good for Alec Baldwin, okay? So the prosecutor's concerned these guns had been messed with. Well, the average trigger pull is 1.9 pounds. Okay. It's in close agreement with the FBI determination, but they're all similar. This is all similar to what they have. So it's no different. It doesn't look like it has been screwed with. It's not like it had a 1 pound trigger pull or a half pound trigger pull. There are some people out there who run guns where their trigger pull is measured in ounces. Remember, there's only 16 ounces in a pound. So, especially precision rifles, there are some of them where it's basically you breathe on it and you'll set it off. And once again, this is the bullet. This is the one that did it. They talk about the fatal incident from an examination of the cartridge case and the restored evidence. Consequences of the hammer being manually retracted to its fully rearward position and cocked forward at some point. Okay. And then by the pull of rearward depression of the trigger. The only way that this could happen otherwise, the trigger was already pulled or held rearward while retracting the hammer to its full cock position. Although unlikely and totally contrary to the normal operation, such handling would result in the firing of a cartridge. Okay. They could say at the moment of the discharge that it was pointed at two people, Hannah Hutchins and Joel Souza. Now, if the hammer hadn't been fully retracted to the rear and were to slip from the thumb, the half cock would have caught it, would have prevented the firing pin from reaching it. Okay. And these 3 frames from the video submitted, and this is where we get to see stuff I don't think we've ever seen before. So they point out, this is a view we have never seen before. The thumb's on the hammer spur. So the part of the hammer's partially retracted. This is his thumb on the hammer. He's drawn it back. Look where his finger is. It's kind of in the trigger guard. Remember, that's a no-no. The thumb on the hammer spur, once again, it's silver. They point out that here it appears the cylinder rotated compared to the last shot, which it looks like it did. And his finger appears to be on the trigger, and the hammer is getting cocked back all the way now. They point out the thumb is on the hammer spur now, and it appears to be fully cocked. The cylinders rotate even further. Yes, as you cock a hammer, the cylinder rotates a little bit and then rotates even more. His finger still appears to be on the trigger. Now, this is the video we've seen before, and I've shown it to you guys before. I got to see if I still have it on my desktop here. But this video of Alec Baldwin fumbling with his gun, it's just absolute garbage. He's sitting there and he's just, he can't even hold it right as he's drawing it. It is just absolutely pathetic. And to think that was him handling a firearm, because it was just, you watch it and you're like, I don't understand. Like, it's clear he's kind of bumbling with it. He is not doing anything that's right. Nothing that's safe with it. And I'm trying to find it because it is such good video. Where do I have it? It's got to be here somewhere. I know it's here somewhere. I was looking for it. Where the heck? I guess I can't find it right now. No, we're not using the clip from The Departed because I'm not that guy. I'm the guy who generally gets my job done. But if you guys remember, it shows him trying to cross draw it and he's bumbling. He can't really catch it. He doesn't have it in his fingers right. It's not gripped like somebody who actually knows what they're doing. And Alec Baldwin, look at this. I mean, he's got his finger on the trigger. He clearly not, this is second time, index finger on the trigger. So, yeah, I think Alec Baldwin, guys, I mean, if we're going to be real, it doesn't look good for him. This does not look good for Alec. John says that guy in front of him have some sort of helmet on. No. No. So, let's see here. I know that was a lot to go through, but I wanted to get it done because I think he's back on the menu now because they, they said we thought the gun had been modified. It turns out, nope, working like the rest of them. Oh boy. So And Anna Shu is saying, are the movie sets required of medical personnel on duty? Yes, they do. But you put he blew a half-inch hole through this lady. There ain't nothing you could do about that except get her to a hospital. And he plugged her and it went right through her chest. I mean, she died. She ain't gonna make it. I mean, that you put a hole through organs or very important things that make the blood go around. That's it. There ain't no coming back from that stuff. So, Patty saying, didn't the FBI say Baldwin cannot have pulled the trigger and the gun still fire? Yes, they said there's no. I think if I remember right, the FBI said the only way the gun would have been able to fire is if the trigger were pulled. They basically excluded any sort of. They couldn't duplicate any sort of malfunction because guns are machines. They could sometimes break or skip a step. It could happen theoretically, but generally it doesn't. Almost every time a gun goes off, it's because someone pulled the trigger. Like out of 1,000,000 times, it's going to be like 999,000. Okay. That's how much it's going to happen. It's almost always you. Every once in a while, the gun might actually break, but they could not find or duplicate a mechanical problem. So, yeah, Alec Baldwin's probably going to be back on the menu. So, Porcelain Thunder says the dude was thorough. Yeah, well, that's what a good expert does. A good expert does that. Raven saying, yikes. Yeah, well, that is how things go. It's that. Yeah, that bullet went through somebody. That happens all the time. When you're dealing with murders and gruesome crimes, you get to see those things or touch those weapons. Salty Ball saying, I'm late. Is Helena still dead? Yes, she's still dead. Runkle showed in his video Baldwin had to pull the trigger. Yes, and I agree. And I demonstrated it back when I have a couple of black powder pistols, but they operate the same principle. Yes. I know Brandon Herrera did it too. A lot of people have. You have to pull the trigger to get a single action revolver to fire. Now, once again, the prosecutor, they went out of their way to make sure there's, his attorney with going with that expert now, that defense attorney can't go up to him at trial and say, well, did you test everything? Yes, I did. Well, could it have been this or that? Nope. There's no way that gun went off unless someone fired it. Pull the trigger. They point out, like, yeah, that could have happened, but that's highly unlikely. And they explain that. So Alec Baldwin's going to have a tough time. Mr. K saying 1.9 pounds is not light for a single action. It's not, but you get down to like 1.5 pounds, okay, well, you're kind of getting a little light. Still not bad, but yes, it's all within the range. It's light compared to like a Glock or a SIG or, a USP or something like that. Revolvers shoot a lighter trigger than handguns. So that is ST Trekkie Girl says, this isn't simple enough for Baldwin to comprehend. Yes, well. Oh. Jonathan says you can't believe they killed an unfired Pieta revolver. Hey, it's an unfired reproduction. It's not like they destroyed like Wyatt Earp's bunt line to do anything with this. So it was all done in the name of science. And Goalie says, "Did the gun have nipples? Show us the nipples." I did. I circled the nipples. Oh. So, Chaucerian Fraud says the people in charge of this case seem to already want to let Baldwin off. Yes, they wanted to. I think they really, really wanted to. I think they thought this was going to be good enough. We heard there was a modification of the gun. We'll send to the expert, and he'll say, if it's inconclusive, they can say, well, we can't try him because our duty is not try him if the evidence isn't conclusive. I'm betting they read this and were just like, fuck, fuck, fuck. I think they were not happy this happened. But now you got to do something with it because your expert said, like, ain't no way this could have happened like he said. I'm just saying, guys, no, he did it. He plugged this lady by acting like an idiot. So, yeah, it's going to be a tough time. Claude says they got the wrong expert. No, they got the best expert they could find, and it just turns out it's not the right answer they were looking for. But now Hannah's team gets that information, and guess what? Now it's out. It's been released. I think part of releasing this and the causation argument, because now it shows the causation is no longer on Hannah. Alec Baldwin pulled the trigger. He was dicking around with the gun. Also, attaching this report as an exhibit for people like me to show to all of you. Well, now everybody knows what the story is. And that is not, yeah. That's the interesting part here. Pitchlock says no 6 Sauer defense for Alec. Okay, that is a very funny comment because, yes, 6 Sauer's made pistols that go off and are just randomly going off right now. Giga Mango Fanta for $2 saying, are the older super berries visible to you or no? They are. I was just trying to catch up through everything first, but yes, we're going to get to those now. So, my apologies. J-Rock for $2 is saying, I appreciate your words for the farms. Joe's usury. I think I already answered this one, but yeah. J-Rock for $2 more. Thank you again is saying, your mother counts still, chat. Yes. Talk to your mother. Talk to your mother. Wash your penis. Yeah. Wash your penis. Embrace your shadow. Giggle Manga Fanta for $5 saying, fun fact, the best penicillin comes in many good doses, or maybe I was thinking of calibers. I forgot. Cheers to the fridge-shaped lawyer man. Well, thank you. Giggle Manga Fanta again for $5. Thank you. It's saying Vito, Destiny, and Vosh, the big guy in all of America, first get into a ring with each other for a SmackDown. The prize is a dozen kitties. Who wins? Well, see, Destiny's not PDF related. I mean, Vito and Vosh, oh my God, I think those guys would, well, Vosh is going to bring up the whole coconut issue. I'm going to walk up to those kids and say, kids, let's say I put you on an island with some coconuts. In fact, I've got one right here. Vito, I think, would just go for it. And, Biden, I think Biden and Vito would have to fight. Isaac Baruch's wholesome gabagool art for $5. Thank you. It's saying, got to catch a replay. Much love, friend. Hope Baldwin pays, but I doubt it. Thanks to the FBI for breaking evidence. Surely they've never done that before. Except in this case, it was important. We know the gun was used. There's no question about it. There's no question it fired. The FBI destructive tested it to prove this Alec Baldwin's theory was impossible. So how do you prove this couldn't have happened? We had to break the gun and it still didn't do what you wanted. Your claim that it just went off. No, we broke the gun and we couldn't duplicate your allegations. No, that's actually a very good testing of it. It was destructively tested. Your story doesn't work. So it's actually not a bad thing. For once, the FBI destroyed evidence for once, and it wasn't a bad thing. Not saying, yes, I agree. Most of the time, it's not good. Just this once, it's okay. Gigo Mango Fanta for $5. Thank you. I appreciate it tonight a lot. Saying, so if a MGTOW Manosphere WWE tournament was to be hosted, and the contestant who wins the Lady Boy, Andrew Tate, Jack Murphy, Nick Fuentes, or Drex, probably be Andrew Tate. And I would just say that because Andrew Tate has said such weird things, like he'd rather date a tranny who's a 10 versus a woman who's a 4. So I'm assuming Andrew Tate probably won. I mean, he's the toppest of the G's. And he's the top G. So, Wolfer says, sorry if I'm late, but if grand juries are so one-sided, then why do we still have them? They sound useless and are biased. Yeah, I mean, because it's part of we view the grand jury, ideally that it operates in secret and that it is the community, and the community can decide not to indict people. I mean, it happens all the time. I think a great example of that is Kyle Rittenhouse. He was prosecuted on an information, meaning the prosecutor went ahead and said, "I'm charging you with crimes, and I'm not using the grand jury." Why? Because they knew the grand jury would not indict for this. Now, that happens in a lot of states. You hear of people getting prosecuted by information. The neat thing is states like Ohio, and this is an Ohio brag time. The neat part about Ohio is you cannot be forced to stand trial for a felony unless the grand jury indicts you for it. So the only way you can be charged on an information for a felony is if you consent to it in writing. Now you might say, wait, why would I do that? So and here's actually a common way it happens. You've got a bunch of cases you're dealing with, and at some point you got stopped by the police and they searched your car and they found a baggie of drugs. Well, they sent that baggie off for drug testing, and it took like a year and a half for the results to come back. And while we're doing all your cases, the drugs come back. Oh, and it's a ton of coke. Okay, well, the prosecutor, and I did this before as a prosecutor, I'd go to the defense attorney and say, hey, look, he's got this charge. My boss is telling me we have to charge it. We can indict it, and that's just going to set everything back because now we're going to have to lump this indictment into the cases that are going to try to reach a global resolution. Would your guy agree just to admit or consent to us charging him via information? And then we plea it out, and that way it takes care of the case. And having been a defense attorney, this happens every once in a while. I go to my guy and say, look, when you got stopped a long time ago, and sometimes they don't remember it. Sometimes like, oh yeah, I remember that. And they're like, yeah, it definitely was coke. I say, look, you can make them indict you, and then your cases are going to drag on, and we have to come back and deal with this more and more and more. Or you can just agree to be prosecuted via an information. You'll have to sign off on it. We'll lump it all together. We'll resolve it all together, tie it in a big bow, and maybe you get probation or, you get sent on your way, but at least your cases are done. And generally speaking, most people agree, like, I'd rather get all my business wrapped up. If I'm going to be going to prison, fine, tack on all the little things, run all the time together. Maybe we dismiss it at that point. Whatever it is we do, yeah, let's just get it going. So it streamlines the process. Fair Frozen 55 for $5. Thank you. Is saying SIGs are intentionally designed to go off while in the holsters of cops working as intended. Also, did you miss my last chat? Oh, you know what? No, I did not. I didn't get a chance to get to that yet. Yes. So for $5, thank you. You're saying your dad's stubbornness and not showing pictures is telling me the make. I'm afraid it's some trashy impulse bot. Told me he shot one box through it. Ooh. Well, I mean, if it's an impulse purchase, just take it from him and then go sell it. Or maybe you have a throwdown piece now. Maybe it's a high point. That would be awful. Maybe it's a 45 high point. Ooh, scary. I know. Now you're really worried. Could be a high point. Also made in Ohio. Giggle Mango Fanta says for $2, is pineapple and pizza heresy or no? Pineapple and pizza is fucking disgusting. Pineapple's disgusting in general, so I don't know why people eat it. It tastes like crap to me. It's so sweet. Kimbo says, tip your YouTube host or I'll give you the tip. Well, I don't know if I'll go that far. Hold on 1 second. Not a raid. Not a raid. Future Mrs. Martin just wanted to tell me pineapple on pizza is very good. No, it's not. It's disgusting. Disgusting. It is not. The Prophet would not do that. No. Absolutely horrible. Woofer says, do you have a Cash App ID? Yeah, I do, but I used, I need to get it. I had problems with Cash App for a while. I had an issue where a client tried to pay me and Cash App was giving me problems. I need to get it back up. So I'll work on putting something together. But I know down below is like my Venmo and Zelle or whatever, if you want to send something there. If you do, I appreciate it, certainly. But yeah, I need to get my Cash App back. But I also haven't had clients ask to use Cash App lately. So, but it's a good idea from, you're causing me to get that set back up. So you guys are talking about disgusting things here. So, but I hope that issue with the grand jury makes sense. That's why we use them. You guys don't like high points. Oh, come on. Joe saying pineapple and pizza is communism. Well, I think it's just degeneracy. It's what Philistines do. Yes, I was muted. Yes, I know. You could read my lips saying, ain't corn the long way. Why? That's our secret. Why would you say that? That could be something me and you would have shared. But now everybody knows. It's no longer your secret. It's no longer that thing you can, keep close to your heart. So, all right. So where are we at? What do we have left now at this point? So, like I said, guys, keep that space open. Trump. Well, we'll see what happens to Trump. In other news, Project Veritas. If you guys don't remember Project Veritas, that's James O'Keefe's organization where they were doing groundbreaking journalism, getting people caught. One of their first kills way back in the day was Acorn. If you guys don't remember them, they were part of the Association of Community Organizing Reformers Now or something like that. I don't know. They helped Obama get into power when he was in Chicago and were part of the money funneling that was going on. Well, that was one of the scalps James O'Keefe collected over the years. Well, the people running Project Veritas, because the way it was set up, allowed him to do things. Well, they told James O'Keefe to hit the bricks a while back, and now James O'Keefe is off to doing his own things. And Project Veritas, well, they laid off a bunch of people. And I think that was very, very interesting. And we know this because this came from, well, as much as I don't like Poso at times, Jack Posobiec, he did put this up, and I think this is a funny tweet. This is from Project Veritas saying, SOS, Hannah Giles just fired us all. Oh, pretty much everybody there was just laid off, and this has actually been confirmed. So you hate to see it. And now I'm sure the people that got laid off, I'm sure weren't necessarily the people who got James O'Keefe pushed out, but it's kind of funny. They thought they didn't need James O'Keefe, and well, as soon as he left, it just boom, just nosedived. So, and that's it. James O'Keefe, in the meantime, is back to running his own thing. So we'll see what happens from there. He's running his own stuff now. He's still out there doing the groundbreaking and, that hard-hitting stuff. Zero Fuck saying their board was infiltrated. Yeah, their board was infiltrated, and certainly that may have been their thought. We'll kill off Project Veritas, but James O'Keefe can go start his next thing up. They can chase down. That doesn't do anything. I don't get the point of it, but that's people want to do it. So we'll see what happens. Just me for $9.99. Thank you, by the way, is saying the reason Alec Maybe he's talking about Alex Jones. I'm going to take this pistol and kill some globalists. That'd be great. Yes. You know, a semi-wad cutter globalist, they can't handle that. And those vampire demons, give them a little wad cutter action. They can't handle it either. Just a whiff of bullseye. The reason Alec wasn't handed the gun by the armor on the set is the norm is the COVID set guidelines. So who is responsible for the Fauci? Maybe Fanny can open a RICO case against him in Atlanta. Yes, that's very true. And I wonder if this technically counts as a COVID-related death because it was a COVID policy that caused it. But yes, very, very true. Gigo Mango Fanta saying for $2. Beef ribs or pork ribs, wet or dry? I like beef ribs, but if you do pork ribs just right, I'm down. But I think beef ribs are a little more. I enjoy eating those more. And wet or dry? Oh, I wet normally because a lot of people suck at doing dry seasoning. A lot of people suck at it, so I'd rather do wet. Just a good sauce. It's easier to do a bad sauce that's still good versus doing a crappy dry rub, which then I have to suffer through. So I hope that makes sense. Wolfer for $20. Holy cow, thank you, man. I appreciate it. Thank you for the super chat. I know it showed you just sent a sticker. I really appreciate it. So thank you. If you wanted to ask a question, sure, ask one away. I'll make sure I'll catch it and answer it before we're done tonight. Giggle Mango Fanta for $5 saying, I guess a small hat enablers or glowing board of directors that infiltrated Veritas will try to do the same to OMG. James needed to worry such backers. Yeah, but I mean, here's the thing. They come after him there. He can just keep moving. But I'm sure he's learned his lesson to be careful about how he sets things up going forward. Okay. So if you guys were not aware, well, this goes back a long, long way. The WWE, when they had their divas, way back to like some of the OG ones. One of them was Tammy Lynn Sytch, who went by the name Sunny. And what I can tell you is, this is her now. I think they have a good picture of her down here somewhere. Okay. Well, anyway, she was one of the more well-known girls involved in the WWE back in the day. And she, a couple of years ago, was drinking, killed a guy who was along the side of the road and crashed in his car and killed him. And she was very, very much over the limit. She's been in jail since May of last year, and we covered this when it happened. And her bond was revoked. She didn't get a bond because she had tons of arrests for DUIs. She has changed her plea to no contest to felony DUI causing a death. And, driving on a suspended license, which if you're going to drive on a suspended license, don't kill nobody. That looks bad. She is set to go to trial next week. She faces a maximum sentence of 25 years in prison. So if you're going to drink and drive, man, be careful. And if you guys don't know, she did not look like this back in the day. In fact, if I can see if I can find a good picture of her, I'll bring it up because she did not look like this back in the day. Well, so Tammy was, like I said, she was a looker. And she was known as Sunny. That was her. This is Sunny back in the day. And here's her today. So, don't give your life up to drinking. It doesn't end well. I'm sure there probably was some drug use involved there as well, too, but who knows? So I just covered it because I thought it was interesting. And it's also, she survived this long and has died from a heart attack related to steroids. So Raven saying you men would have simp for her back in the. Yeah, we would have. I remember all them girls. Sable, China, all of them. All those women. Yeah, she was the hot blonde before Sable. Sable was hot. So Chris saying, is that my aunt? No, it's not my auntie. So just me saying, well, jail's not been kind to her. I don't think it's jail that's not been kind to her. I think it's a lot of alcohol abuse has not been kind to her. So, Charlie's saying I had the Sable Playboy. Yeah, I've seen that one too. Harbor Walrus saying China had such a handsome jaw. Oh no. Oh yes. But I know we covered it, and I try to stick with those things we've talked about in the meantime. And then this one is one that I thought was very interesting. I covered it on Locals on Monday because somebody brought it to my attention. I had not heard about this. If you guys remember the movie The Blind Side, it's with Sandra Bullock in it, where what happened is The Blind Side, Michael Oher, I forget how you pronounce these people's names. They made he's alleging that the Tuohys, the family that in the movie where Sandra Bullock's like, oh my God, he's a big black guy. We're gonna, they blindsided him apparently by stealing money from him. Yeah, you see, I did that. They made millions off of him. So he filed a motion, and I'm going to cover this more in depth on an actual standalone video because there's a lot to talk about. There are some issues there with one of the attorneys may have been doing some shady dealing practices. So he learned this past year he was never adopted by the Tuohys. And he filed a petition to terminate his conservatorship. The Tuohys set it up where he was their ward, meaning he was incompetent. Now, this happened as soon as he turned 18. There is some idea that this was done to protect him from the NCAA rules regarding financial issues. And, we're here to protect our student athletes. As Cartman likes to say, wow, that's what you call them. That's such a funny name. Student athletes. So they argue, and he's arguing that as conservators, they're there to conserve and protect him. Interest. Part of the things they're supposed to do is do an accounting of all the money coming in or out. That's never happened. A lot of things have happened that apparently he signed his rights away in perpetuity completely to Fox for that movie for no cost. Yeah. A lot of things have happened. Oh boy. He claims that they tricked him. Now, I understand part of what he's alleging is that they're alleging that when he's in his biography, he admitted that they never adopted him, and he knew that. Barton Bella, you're right, that they're claiming that he said he didn't want the money. And right now him and his attorney are claiming that they used their powers to strike deals that paid them and their two birth children millions of dollars in royalties from a film that earned more than $300 million. Well, he got nothing for it. And once again, the Tuohys can argue, well, no, here's an accounting for everything. Now, to be fair, the Tuohys have been dishonest. They've said for years he's our adopted son. Now, it doesn't sound as good to say, well, yeah, he's our ward and we filed paperwork to do all this kind of like mumbo jumbo funny business. Well, that doesn't sound good when you're trying to we done adopted this poor little black kid and he became an NFL star. Hooey. I mean, that sounds better than, making this whole this confusing story about whether or not he's a ward and he's under conservatorship. that's an issue. Like they were gaming on that. They made money off that. I mean, it doesn't sound as good that way, does it? So, they're claiming that he discovered this lie to his chagrin in 2023, but there are allegations that, um, Raven, you're saying someone adopted you and you shit on them. They never adopted him. Now, yes, when he was under the age of 18, he was in the custody of the Tennessee Department of Children and Family Services because his mom lost custody. And yes, adopting somebody when they're in the custody of Children's Services is a pain in the ass, probably. But once you turn 18, it's easy to get adopted as an adult. You just go, I want to adopt this person. And then the person getting adopted says, is this what you want? Yep. Bingo, bango, done. So, yep, Trekkie Girl's right. They didn't file accountings. The money has not been accounted for, apparently. This would be easy enough for them to disprove. Oh, my bad. No, don't worry about it. It's all good. It's all good. So, Barton is saying, yeah, he did the 3 years the adoption would have taken. The conservatorship was an emergency granting it and only took a couple of weeks. Sure. But why is it still going? Because he's no longer in college. Why did it have to keep going? And to get conservatorship, you have to show that person suffers from a mental defect and they have to become a ward, just like the concept of a ward of the state. You can't manage your own affairs. So what happened? Well, it is a very, it's not a very long document, but they have a ton of allegations. So they, Sean Toohey, which is one of the kids, is saying they didn't make any money off the movie, which I don't think that's probably true. Just saying. They only made a share of the proceeds from Michael Lewis's, because here's the thing. If you guys didn't make money and Michael Oler didn't make money, who made the money? Somebody did. And they only made a share of the proceeds from the book, which was the foundation for the film. It's upsetting to think we would make any money off any of our children, but we're going to love Michael at 37 just like we loved him at 16. I guess he's saying it's really blindsided him too. I know, that was awful. I've actually never watched the movie. So I don't, I didn't know anything about this story. I thought it was like, basically they, I didn't know anything about it. I just thought they let him live with them and then he got an NFL contract out of it at the end of the day. Like I've never watched it. Apparently it is a decent movie or makes you feel good. I don't know. So he's asking for the conservatorship to be removed. Now, interestingly enough, this came out today. The Toohey family plans to end their conservatorship of Michael after the lawsuit was filed. It's been in place for 20 years nearly. So yeah, once again, why was it in place for 20 years? Things that get your noggin jogging. Why did we need that? That's kind of one of the problems here. So, no longer is he going to be a student athlete. So his lawsuit, which was obtained by ESPN, like I said, I'm going to cover this one because it is juicy. It is very interesting to read. And if you guys become a member over Locals and support me, you can hear my comments about this as I'm reading it in real time, and it's a little colorful. So they are going to terminate the conservatorship. Okay. So they call the accusation hurtful and absurd. And they claim, which is interesting because Sean said that, notice Sean Toohey, the dad, said we didn't get any money. Attorneys for the family said Wednesday the $500,000 in proceeds from the film was split evenly among all the family members, including Michael Orr. Why do the other kids get money? They weren't like, I guess they were in the story, but why? Why are they involved in it? Oh, Joe, you're saying yes. If you do over at potentiallycriminal.locals.com, 113, you get the promo code criminal. And you get get access to all the shows, the Monday show and the after show we have here. So you guys can do that. Potentiallycriminal.locals.com, 113 with the promo code criminal. Thank you, Joe. You're better. I gotta work on the salesman thing. It's interesting though, because the dad said, well, we didn't make any money. Apparently you did. Your attorneys are saying so. And Raven, you have $5 a month to pay for locals? Well, yeah, 1 month free. Go ahead and sign up. Promo code criminal. Carrie says, but ignore my chat on locals. No, I didn't, Carrie. Carrie, okay, hold on. It didn't tell me you guys had sent anything. Carrie sent a tip over on Super Chat over on locals saying, for $20, thank you, Carrie. My friend has been in prison for refusing to testify on the stand in a grand jury. I'm going to talk to you about that because I don't know if your friend hasn't gotten an attorney yet, they need to get one. And then Wells Mortensen sent $5 super chat. They call them tips over on local, saying, any particular thing grand about the jury, the less grandiose juries? So there's a grand jury which indicts people, but the jury who sits for a jury trial. So, for example, if it was a murder, the grand jury indicts for the murder. It's called a petit jury. They sit and they're the actual jury there. So those are the two types of juries that you'll have. There's, that's how it goes, at least here in America. There might be other kinds of juries you might deal with in other countries, but that is what's there. Donna's saying the code doesn't. I will fix that. I don't know what's going on, but I will fix that tonight, guys. Harbor Water, it's called a jury royale in France. Yes. Okay. So getting back to this though, why are the kids getting $100,000 a piece? The story's not about them. It's not Sandra Bullock going, oh my God, like she didn't find her other kids. Why are the other kids getting money? Oh, Joe's saying the code works. Oh, okay. Well, if Joe got it, apparently it's Marine proof. So if a Marine can get it, you guys can get it. Barton saying the 500s between the author or Michael or the kids, and it's because it's a family story. Yeah, but if the kids didn't exist, nobody would care. I don't give a shit there were two other kids involved. Like they're part of the story, but that's like nobody cares. Like Indiana Jones is star of Indiana Jones. The guy at the beginning who runs in front of the spikes and gets killed, and during Raiders of the Lost Ark. No, yeah, great, he's in the movie, but he's not the movie. It's Indiana Jones. Like no one cares about those other kids. It's like Sandra Bullock didn't walk up to Michael or like the kids and like take them in. The whole family was blindsided. No, it was, I don't know. So they claim, though, keep going. They further claim that they've treated him like a son, and his response was to threaten them, including saying he would plant this story in the press unless he paid him $15 million. I don't know. They insist that all the money should have been divided equally, and they've made good on that. I don't know. I don't know about that. So they claim he was going to threaten him because he didn't get his windfall. They refused to cash out the small profit checks. They still deposited his share into a trust account they set up for his son. I don't know. Time is going to tell, but I mean, the fact they're bailing out right away, like, why do they keep going? Why were they still his conservator at this point? You don't just forget about that because you're making money. Because without them, contracts can't be signed legally. So they're wetting their beak. I mean, this has been going on way too long. Once again, they're going to have some explaining to do because even if they quit, they're still bound by the duties they have. Joe says, do it all lowercase. Oh, all right. Well, I'll work on that. Bella's saying, so their likeness is still used. Sure, their likeness is still used, but I just don't. I'm like, I don't know. I'm a little, like I said, I have concerns about how they did all that. That was all worked out. So let me see here. Settings. Hold on here. I'm trying to fix this thing real quick, guys. I know some of you are actually wanting to do it. And if you're not doing it, you're just trolling me about whether or not you want to become a member. Then my hat's off to you because I'm like very much like, oh my gosh, they really want to do it. Okay, so we're adding a free trial code criminal, CRIMINAL, starting today and going for, we'll do it to the end of the year. All right. We'll try that. Oh, it's saying it's already used. Doesn't matter if it's upper or lowercase. So, doesn't matter, you guys. Doesn't matter. You guys are going to have to use it here. Hold on. Let me fix it. Let me fix it here. All right. It should be all saved. It should be fixed. The movie's about the whole family. Nobody cares about the whole family. It's about the kid. Like, I honest to God, like, I thought the whole thing was like John Coffey basically gets adopted into his family. Like, I thought it was the Green Mile meets football, honestly. No, nobody cares about the other kids. I don't care about them. It's the guy, he goes on to football. What do the other kids do? They work for the Family Foundation. Like, if Michael Oher hadn't happened to them, what would these kids be doing? I don't know. Something. Okay, you guys are saying it works. It works. All right. Patricia Bradshaw's been a member for 13 months. Thank you, Patricia. I appreciate that. I know you've been around, kind of one of the OGs. So thank you for your support and thank you for keeping it going. Oh, Jonathan's saying it works if you choose monthly. Yeah, you guys have to choose it. Plead the fifth. Maybe I'll be another code at some point. Use the code Hottie Toddy. Yeah, no. Goalie saying, do I promise this isn't a complex ploy to get me to agree to a conservatorship? Maybe. You'll have to find out. So, yes, that is an interesting there. And I'll be looking at that going forward. Then the last thing here, this was a case. Actually, you know what, guys? Oh, we're almost 2 hours, 20 minutes in. We got to wrap it up. We'll cover this next week. Basically, the District of Columbia was prosecuting people for writing things on the ground that said things other than Black Lives Matter, which they let people paint in the middle of the road. And they got their PP slapped really hard by the Court of Appeals. It's a very interesting ruling. We will get to that. Bella's saying the family was already worth $200 million. Joe K saying use the code Article 4 free inhabitant for a full year free. No. Although, you know what? Maybe I'll make it so I'll award in a person 1 free year, and I'll just put a code in. You'll have to guess it. Rabbit is saying, I think it's sus that his mom is back in the picture. Yeah, certainly. If you know his mom's like, oh, you're making all that money, I'm coming back around. Like, that's not abnormal. That thing happens, and yeah, that's very sus. But I would say having the conservatorship going now still, that's really sus. I mean, why do they have to have you got to come to us. We got to wet our beak first. Why are you still in charge with that? Because, I think, Bella, you bring up a good point. They're worth $200 million. They're not some simple bumpkins themselves. They knew that. Why did we have to be his conservator anymore? He's out of the NCAA issues that exist. And if he's not retarded, then why are we doing this? So, yeah, why are you doing this? Sean and Leanne, why are you doing this still? So, and William, okay, I think we'll end on this here. William says, use the code Black's Law in real life to get laughed at in court. Pretty much. Yes, that's a great way to get laughed at. Yeah, I'll watch the movie at some point, I guess. I'll have to. So. And the amateur iconoclast for $5 is saying corruption associated with Ole Miss football. Say it ain't so. Well, yes, corruption associated with the SEC. No way. I agree. And Kimbo Nice is saying Illinois passed a child influencer law over stuff like this. Yes, they did. But it's not only that, like John and Kate Goslin and their kids, which I'm sure aren't going to get a dime of any of that money. Yes, Illinois did pass a law saying that kids who are used by their parents to make money, there is some protections for those children. And that is something I saw today. Somebody in my Discord, actually, we have a little section there in the Discord where, hey, video suggestions and interesting laws and cases. That's one of them. And I think that's worth looking into because that is pretty neat what's going on. Where are we at here? Yes, saying wrap it up, no gloves. NC Native said, I farted in a movie once. It was called Basic Instinct. Oh. Yes, Winter Soldier said that dude in Raiders of the Lost Ark was Alfred Molina. Yes, it was. Also known as Doc Ock. Or, what was Frida Kahlo's? Diego Rivera. Frida Kahlo's husband, the movie Frida. Which, if you want to see Selma Hayek naked, has a lot of Selma Hayek being naked. And it's Selma Hayek from a while back. So she's even, she looks good now. But if you want to see naked Selma Hayek in her prime, movie Frida's not bad. The only problem is, she has a big old unibrow. But you can look past that. So, Raven saying finally got in criminals invalid. I'm going to have to figure it out then. I'm going to have to log out and try to sign in on my own too to see if I can find it. Maybe I'll put a video together. With that said, guys, I want to thank everybody for being here. Over on Twitch, one person watching. Thank you. I appreciate it. Everybody over on Facebook, everybody over on Rumble, everybody over in the locals chat, guys. We're going to start the live show in a minute. Then everybody here on YouTube, thank you so much. If you guys enjoyed this tonight, please like and share. A subscription doesn't hurt either. And then, everybody here sending super chats in, thank you so very much. Everybody been here tonight just chatting, period. Guys, that it makes it so much more fun when there's people here commenting. And once again, we'll be doing this next week at 9:30 as well. And until next time, guys, remember, just because you did it doesn't mean you're guilty. Good night, everybody.